A huge thanks to all the patrons of the channel. I truly appreciate what you guys do, and a lot of it could not be done without you. Thank you guys. If you'd like to support the channel, the Patreon link is below. Welcome to the Twisted Tentacle Inn. I'm your innkeeper, Vase Odin, and today I wanted to do another deck tech for Carolyn Fern. I've done a few in this channel, but I haven't done one in about a year and a half or 2 years. This one is going to be much different. Generally, the deck techs I do for Carolyn are for solo play, but in this case, this is going to be a full support build for Carolyn, something very different than what I've done with her before. The reason for this deck is that Nate from Lost in Time and Space and the leader of the Great Old Ones Gaming podcast, he runs the Twitch channel for the podcast, and he recently reached affiliate level, which is quite an accomplishment. And in order to celebrate, we're doing a 4-player Arkham game with some friends of the channel, and it's going to be a ton of fun. Matastrophic from the Matastrophic YouTube channel has tweaked the Carnivale of Horrors and added some spiders and stuff to it, so it's going to be really interesting and a different take on Carnivale. So in order to play the 4-player game, I figured Carolyn, being a generalist, wasn't going to be as necessary, so why not do something completely different and put her in a full support role? And so that's what I've decided to do. No weapons, no investigation, nothing except full-on support for the other players to do what they do best and do it even better. So we went with a 40-card deck. The reason it's 40 instead of 30 is because I did choose the versatile card. By the way, all the cards, I'm going to link the deck for Arkham DB in the comments, and if you want to know where the cards come from, which packs, they will be listed in Arkham DB. Otherwise, this would take too long. This video would be 3 times the length if I went into each pack that each one came in. Anyways, versatile, which lets you add 5 more cards to your deck and add 1 extra card from a card pool that you may not have access to for level 0. So I went ahead and bought that. I went with a full 39 experience points using standalone rules, so I will have a lot of weaknesses in there. And we went ahead and went with a few strategies for our support role. So first and foremost, our main strategy is to use Spiritual Resolve. Because it's a myriad card, you can have 3 copies in the deck with only costing you 5 experience points for all 3. With awesome horror and damage soak, this card is going to be really helpful, especially when we play Solemn Vow, which also is a myriad card. So we can play, theoretically, 1 for each of the other players who are playing in the game with us, and actually be able to move damage and horror from those other players onto Spiritual Resolve. So that's part of that strategy. In addition to that, we went ahead and went with a card draw strategy to help other players draw cards. So for our hand slots, we only chose 1 card, which is Scroll of Prophecies, 2 copies of that. And with it, you can have other players draw cards. They draw 3 cards and discard 1. So they'll have to discard a card, but I think it's totally worth it in order to continue to draw cards. We also went with Stand Together, an awesome Guardian card that will give other players cards and resources. And of course, the new Leadership Level 2, which gives other player characters, when you commit it to their skill test, they can also gain resources. And you can gain resources as the one who committed the card. So that's pretty cool. And then, of course, Self-Sacrifice, which is a new skill card as well, where if someone is taking a test and they fail, you get to take the negative effects, and then they can draw 2 cards, or you can draw 2 cards. So another cool card to use for there. Our next strategy for support role is giving extra actions to other players. In order to do that, we went ahead and bought 2 copies of Police Badge. Because of our support role, we're not really going to be needing a lot of actions early in the game. So if we draw 1 or 2 police badges early in the game, we can spend actions putting them into play without hesitation, and then give 2 extra actions to other players. We also went with guidance to give another action to a player. Police badge also boosts our willpower, which is very important for this support strategy, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. Our next strategy is going to be the resource management or resource lending strategy. With the 1 copy of Teamwork, we can lend resources and items to other players, including handing off a copy of Police Badge to another player so they can use it while still putting another copy into play for ourselves to use on someone else. In addition to that, with Teamwork, we can pass resources over to other people. And with Peter Silvestrian Forbidden Knowledge, that is a major resource generation tool for Carolyn Fern. So this is another great way to keep that resource pool filled. And of course, Peter Silvestri level 2 also gives a boost to willpower. So between Police Badge and Peter Silvestri, our willpower will be decent, which will also help with our next strategy. Liquid Courage will help to heal other players' horror, and you do have to make willpower tests. So we'll commit Fearless if we need to heal even more horror, and pass the test by either committing Fearless or using the willpower boost that we're getting from Peter and the police badges. And the last piece of the horror healing puzzle would be Hallowed Mirror, which also will help with card draw. And all these horror healing cards will also help get rid of Rational Thought, which can be a pain sometimes. Not just that, but healing horror from other investigators also gives them extra resources. So that's also part of our support with giving more resources to other players. And as I mentioned earlier, I picked 2 copies of Versatile, so I can add 5 additional cards to the deck for each copy that I get. So that's an extra 10 cards in the deck. Plus, I can pick 2 cards from other card pools that I may not have access to. I didn't really care to have many other cards that I didn't have access to, but I thought Scrounge for Supplies would have been a good one to get. So I went ahead and picked it. This is because I am planning on committing cards and spending a lot of event cards, one-time use event, and Scrounge for Supplies will help me pick some of those back up and use them more than just twice in a game. Also, part of the strategy is going to be mitigating the encounter deck. So cards like Fool Me Once, to get rid of encounter cards that are especially brutal, it's going to be pretty important. Of course, Let Me Handle This, which there's a lot of willpower tests in Carnivale, so our willpower is already going to be boosted by some of the cards we talked about earlier, but this will help us get an extra +2 to the test and take someone else's treacheries for them. We're also going to use Water Protection if we end up taking a treachery from someone that we can't handle, or just one that we get ourselves that we don't want to handle. And Self-Sacrifice, which we talked about earlier as well, is also a mitigation tool for the encounter deck. Stargazing, which is a fantastic card in a 4-player game because you're almost sure to see it within a couple of rounds once you play it. So 4-player game is where Stargazing shines. And I did make a video about that card if you're interested. I will post it in the video description or on the little cue cards that pop up on the screen. And also for encounter mitigation, First Watch. It's an awesome card that lets you rearrange the encounter cards that you pull during the Mythos phase and hand them out specifically to the players that you want to receive those. So let's say someone can handle a willpower test, you can hand them that encounter card out of the 4 that you pull for the round, or you can take more than one yourself and prevent someone who, say, really can't handle any more encounter cards and dish it out to yourself. And so you may draw 2 encounter cards or 3 or even all 4 for yourself and no one else takes them. So this is going to be a good one to have, especially if you end up drawing or if I end up drawing a bunch of cards that are going to dish out a lot of horror damage. If I can tank that, I'll just take all 4 and nobody gets an encounter card that round. I think between the encounter card mitigation tech that we have in this deck, plus horror healing, and then the sharing of resources and card draw, as well as giving extra actions to other investigators, I think we've got a really great support deck here. Unlike other different types of support decks, this one is meant to help with different things than you may be normally used to. So we don't have a lot of skill cards that we can help commit or other things like that, but we do have a really cool way to support people by avoiding the encounter deck altogether, or healing people or giving them extra actions so they can do what they do best. So that is my deck tech for this 4-player game. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. You will see this deck in action on Wednesday, June 24th. It's going to be played live on the Great Old Ones Gaming channel's Twitch channel, and I will post a link for that Twitch channel in the description as well for you guys to have access to it. All right, guys, thank you very much, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.